CookieRun Ovensmash is the newest entry in the CookieRun franchise, and just this last week it entered its closed beta, which I was lucky enough to get access to through the content creator program. I've had some time to play the game now, and as a longtime CookieRun fan, I wanted to outline what you can expect from the game if you're familiar with existing CookieRun games, so you can set your expectations and know whether this is a game you should pick up. First off, the gameplay of Ovensmash is fairly unlike any CookieRun games released so far. It is a fast-paced MOBA, meaning it is primarily focused on player versus player battles in short team or free-for-all matches. There seems to be much less of a focus on leaderboards and meta progression like you would typically see with a CookieRun game, and more of a focus on honing your skills and enjoying each match. That being said, there still is a form of meta progression in the game, and of course, being a CookieRun game, you mainly progress through a gacha, or more specifically in this game, loot boxes. Alongside limited events, you will gather resources in Ovensmash through loot boxes, which are awarded after a certain number of matches played each day. These can give either soul chips or coins, which are the currencies used to unlock and power up cookies, and I'll give you more on that later. The PvP itself in this game is pretty fun and responsive. Those familiar with Tower Adventures will notice some similarities between the combat in both games, but there are some key differences. Each cookie in Ovensmash has 3 abilities, a basic attack, special, and ultimate ability, all of which feel unique to each cookie and give them a lot of character and variety. The basic attack is spammable, but does actually differ in unique ways for most cookies, even among the melee cookies. The special skill is usually, but not always, a movement ability, and often comes with an additional effect like dealing damage, giving invulnerability, or some crowd control effect, to name a few. And of course, the ultimate is a long cooldown ability which has a unique and powerful effect for each cookie. One big difference with this system in TOA is that Ovensmash has no dash, so you have to be more mindful of your usage of the special attack and your positioning. And there's no real comparison to draw here between the gameplay of Ovensmash and that of Kingdom, Ovenbreaker, Witch's Castle, but if you've played other MOBAs or Brawl Stars especially, you should get the gist of how this game works. Now, like mentioned before, there is a gacha and some amount of meta progression in the game, which is certainly familiar from other CookieRun games. Cookies are unlocked when you obtain 20 of their soul chips, which are this game's version of soul stones, and you can level up your cookies by spending soul chips and coins. There are also rarity-specific soul chips, which are used exclusively for leveling up cookies of the matching rarity, and these take lower priority, so you'll always spend the cookie-specific soul chips first. This is nice because it allows you to have a resource that isn't fully dependent on luck to power up your cookies. Cookies also have alternative abilities and passives which are unlocked at certain levels. You can spend coins to purchase them once you get them, and the alt, special, and ult abilities usually change them just a little bit, but some of them actually completely change up the abilities, so they're definitely interesting to look at. And aside from unlocking alt abilities, levels also grant an HP and attack boost. The difference between a level 1 and a level 10 cookie actually is pretty big, but at least in the closed beta it was fairly easy to get a couple cookies maxed or at least leveled up to 8 or 9. And overall this system works fine for providing something to build towards and giving an incentive to keep playing, but there have been a lot of complaints among players so far regarding the gacha system, so we'll see if the devs decide to make any changes in the future. Now, the gameplay loop for Ovensmash of course does feature some daily objectives and rewards, but the game overall seems to run more on an event-based schedule with fewer things you need to log in consistently every day or at the same time to do, like you may see with Kingdom or Tower of Adventures. This is a nice change of pace and fitting for the game genre, as it feels like Ovensmash is more of a play whenever you feel like it game, rather than an obligation. There will of course still be FOMO elements, but in my opinion it is good when you don't feel like you're missing out on a ton of stuff just because you weren't in the mood to do dailies, or you were too busy for them that day. I do have to say as well that all this could change as more events are added and the game furthers in its development, but this at least was the impression I got from it from the closed beta. The game modes so far were pretty fun and offered a nice variety given that there were only 4 of them, but one thing I did notice is that load times for both launching the game and getting into matches was quite long, especially given how fast the pace of the game is. Overall, this formula makes for a nice side game for existing CookieRun players to pick up and have something to do in their off time, or a good casual introduction to the franchise for new fans with low expectations on keeping up with the lore and a low barrier for entry. Looking forward past the closed beta, we can definitely expect some changes and new features added to the game, as the devs have been putting a lot of effort into the closed beta. Ovensmash is being developed by a new studio, Press A, so we do not have any precedent to go off of for what direction they might take going forward, but looking back at other CookieRun titles, we do have some idea of where the game might go. One aspect of the game I have been hearing the most complaints about, other than the bugs present in the beta test, which I have intentionally not been mentioning so far, is the gacha loot box system. A lot of players feel it doesn't feel good or fair in this game, and this may seem odd at first, seeing as the CookieRun franchise and gachas are almost synonymous, but many players, myself included, feel like the gacha system for unlocking characters and progression in a MOBA game is not the wisest decision. Most MOBA games give players the agency to choose which characters to unlock next, which makes sense given you can look at their kits ahead of time and decide which ones might fit your playstyle before investing in them. But cookies and Ovensmash are locked behind a gacha with no rate up option currently, so you get no ability to influence which cookies you can work toward. This can leave you unable to play cookies that you really want to try or that might be in the meta, and it also feels really bad when you go on streaks of getting soul chips for cookies you don't really care about, while an unobtained cookie sits at 19 out of 20 soul chips, like what happened with me with Dark Choco. Aside from the gacha, we already know that at least 2 more game modes are in the works, these being Gnome Battle and Claim the Vault, which we don't really have many details on at the moment, but they definitely sound interesting. Another thing I've heard a lot of complaints about so far in the game is the UI, and it definitely could use some work, especially in the English translations of some of the buttons. It's sometimes not very clear what you're meant to interact with to do certain things, and some of the buttons are sometimes hard to press as well. For example, right after the match, you are left on a screen where the only interactable button is a fairly small exit button in the corner, and pressing this leads you to the post-match summary. My first game, I sat on the screen for a while trying to figure out how to check the summary, only to give up and press the exit button, thinking it would take me back to the lobby, but like I said, it takes you to the match summary screen, like what I actually wanted. Hopefully the devs take some feedback on all of this and change up some of the UI elements in the future to make it easier to use. You can definitely use some fine-tuning there. There were also a good number of cookies revealed in the trailer, which unfortunately did not make it into the closed beta, so we can definitely expect to see them in the full release. I am very excited to see how they all play, as each cookie has a very unique kit, and it is clear that they've been working hard to give each cookie a lot of personality through their abilities. Following that, we'll have to see how the devs handle new cookie releases and the possibility of rate-up banners or an entirely new system to obtain cookies. But in all, I think this game is a great addition to the lineup of CookieRun games. I've certainly had a lot of fun playing it, and I hope you all will as well once it's out. See ya!